Bay's RBLR Sports.
Good evening, everyone. The music is still loud, so I'm not sure if that's coming through yet. Give it a second. Yep, there it goes. Carlos here, Eureka there. James not here. I wasn't here earlier this week, so we flip-flopped. Eureka's on full-time duty this week. Here we are. It is April 11th, 6:47 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As of less than 12 hours ago, officially. The Rowdies are without head coach Robbie Neilson leading the charge this season. We'll get into all of this in a second, Eureka. This is the only reason we're live right now. It's the Emergency Podcast, Emergency Rowdies Pod, as you've aptly titled it. Steve Coleman taking over head coaching duties, at least in the interim right now. We'll get into all this in just a second. I won't let the emergency nature of this podcast prevent me from beginning how we always start, though. Eureka, how are you doing on your end? It's been a while since it's just been you and I, live or recording.
Always a pleasure to be with you, sir. However, and a double pleasure to be on the pod twice. Not a pleasure to get a notification at early this morning.
9 a.m.
It completely derailed my day like immediately.
Yeah.
So now I'm and so I've been sort of scanning and getting notes and things together for inevitably. I mean, immediately in our group chat, we were like, got to do a show today. Yeah, we got to put something together. And then here we are. So I'm thrilled to be alive and I'm thrilled to be here with you, but I'm not joyous one day before the Rowdies home opener, of which we've been trying to do Rowdies hype, and we will continue to do that. But at the moment, the vibes are sort of in different places right now.
More questions than answers, we could say.
Correct.
Correct. And we talked about this before we even went live here right now. The next, I don't know, say 30, 40 minutes. I don't know how long we'll be on. Again, super impromptu last second. Right. I feel like it will be more questions than answers, right? We're kind of processing this still. Like I said, it's been less than 12 hours since this went out earlier today at 9 a.m. I'm not exactly sure how I feel about it yet. I think I might be in the minority based on what I've seen on Facebook and everything. But Eureka, we should just dive into it then, shouldn't we?
Yeah.
Wait,
before we get going, guys, this is an open forum for all of you. Thank you to all of you that are watching us right now. Drop your comments. If you're on youtube.com, that is the best way to get your comment on screen. We're at youtube.com/@RBLR Sports. That way we can pull up your comment and try to get to all of them. Try to get to, hopefully we either bring up the news you don't know about, or we offer an opportunity to see different sides of what's going on. But I want to hear your comments, please. But yeah, if you hop on youtube.com/@RBLR Sports, that is the best way that you can comment and be a part of this. It's not a one-way street. It's a two-way go, and we want you to be part of it. So sorry to interrupt you, Carlos.
Especially in a last-second pod like this, Eureka. Great point getting there, because I was going to get there eventually. This is going to be one where I think we can enjoy a great conversation back and forth. If anybody's listening live, like you said, on YouTube, it's the most efficient way to get your comments on here. Tag us on Twitter as well if you're listening.
Yeah, please.
Listening to the live. We'll get to it, I'm sure, eventually. But yeah, I definitely want to hear everybody's thoughts on this as we kind of make our way through this. Generally, I have a sense of how the community is feeling based on the Facebooks and the Twitters of the world, and even the Instagrams to some extent. But social media, never a great indicator for, exactly how everyone's feeling. So let's get your thoughts live as we dive into this. Obviously, as we've just said, it's April 11th at 8:59 a.m. exactly, to be exact. The Tampa Bay Rowdies announced that they've relieved head coach Robbie Neilson of his duties after one full season and 4 games this year. Assistant coach Steve Coleman will serve as the club's interim head coach starting with this Saturday's home opener against Loudoun United FC by Saturday, tomorrow, at Al Lang Stadium. So before we jump into any of that, absolutely reinforcing the fact that we're still hyping up the squad. The roster is still as talented as it was pre or post Robbie Neilson. We should still be expecting it, and we'll get to expectations in just a little bit too. I'm getting ahead of myself. Either way, good roster. First home game coming up tomorrow. Absolutely don't let this maybe shake up, let's say, stop you from being there and supporting the squad. And,
We need you more than ever to be at the
yeah,
game.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And formerly assistant coach Steve Coleman, now I'm interim head coach from, support him in his first head coaching gig, which again, we'll talk about this in just a second. So that's the news. Rowdies Vice Chairman Brian Auld says appointing Steve Coleman as interim head coach reflects our confidence in the group we have. In his short time at the club, Steve has taken it upon himself to understand our culture and is fully committed to supporting our players on and off the field, reinforcing, his support for Steve Coleman's abilities in this one. And then the Rowdies, press release just wraps up with, 17-8 record under Neilson, finished 2024 season 6 in the Eastern Conference. That's about it. We can dive a little bit more into who Steve Coleman is for those who might not be aware. You'd be forgiven because it was a very quick and, last second kind of addition over the offseason. Yep. We didn't talk too much about it because we don't know a lot about him either. We'll talk a little bit about what you do know about him, expectations, in just a little bit. Okay, so you're good. That's what happened. The Neilson era with the Rowdies, with how short it was, is done. That's where we are today. We have an interim head coach at the mound, leading the boys here ahead of the matchup tomorrow against, by the way, a flying Loudoun United squad.
Crazy. Up is down, left is right. I don't like.
I don't know what's going on. Eureka, let me pitch it to you first. We don't have necessarily like the why for sure. I mean, it's very rare that you're going to have a squad be like, or a club be like, hey, we're getting rid of this guy because the results weren't there. Sure. I mean, it officially won't say anything like that in the press release. I think we can kind of all infer that it's performance related. I saw a couple of folks being like, oh, he lost the locker room or something on Twitter and Facebook. I think it's kind of useless to speculate things like that because we have no way of actually knowing that. The only thing we can really look at is the numbers, how his time at the Rowdies went, and infer from that where we are today. So Eureka, give me your why. Why do you think this is where we are on April 11th at 6:54 p.m.?
Yeah, and I'm not trying to say like, I'm not trying to weigh in, was this a good move or not? I'm just saying, what was the case of letting him go? And results were a big one. You said it right now in the press release. He was dead bang average, 500. And however, our expectations of this club were not bang average. Our expectations of this club and the roster that's been assembled, maybe we're wrong, but I mean, there was a team of veterans and a team of people who have done things in this league, and we made a big change, and then the results became less than what we had expected. In fact, here's a bad one. Since July 27th of 2024, okay, which was a 4-2 win at home against the Charleston Battery, okay, since that time, and that stretch was the end of a stretch of 6 of 7 unbeaten. Okay.
That was a great game.
It was amazing. We were at the highest apex. We were like, we are flying.
The Nate Worth goal, the free kick.
All of it, right? Okay.
Yeah.
That was unfortunately the top of the chart. From that moment to today, which includes the playoffs and everything, which are important, if not the most important thing in American soccer, you have 5 wins, 3 draws, and a dozen losses.
Yeah.
So you have way more. I mean, even if you're happy about drawing, some of those I'm sure were hard fought and won draws, but 8 out of 12 were points, and the other dozen were you left them on the board. So which means like he had so much success early on to say that he had 12 other wins before that stretch. He had 12 other wins before that stretch to get to 5-3-12 since in almost not quite in April, May, June, July. I mean, 9 months, only 5 wins. That's not going to cut it when you have high expectations and title aspirations, or at least home playoff aspirations. So results, I don't think should be brushed aside. I think it is the main reason. I think it is the reason, but also, and you can infer a lot of things from that, but the play on the field was also stuttering. Like we haven't seen I mean, a lot of these, I know Nick Murray put out a really good article kind of saying, the Rowdies led the league, or at least were second to Louisville in terms of expected goals and expected point differential and all these kind of great things. And I'm a stat nerd, and I appreciate all that. But we either need to put 2024 in its own time capsule and say, okay, you had hurricanes and first year on the job and first year in America, and and do that. But if we're going to do that and we're going to give excuses, we'll also have to say, well, all this XG and things that are accumulative over that time period, we sort of need to table that and look at, it was 4 games this year, but the offense is not clicking. The defense is getting worse and worse every week. You have 3 goals and 3 points in 5 weeks. So as a team, you might look at it and say, we have an opportunity because other teams are stalling. There are a few other teams around the league, especially in the Eastern Conference, that are not also, we've had another coach get fired, very recently as well, or released of his duties or something like that. But suffice to say, teams around the league are making their decisions right now based on the opportunity that lies in front of them and the results that they are getting at the moment. So I don't want to talk about, did they lose the locker room? I have heard nothing of that sort as of right now. I have heard no reports. Nobody's, we're reaching out to people. I truly believe that results and results number one were the reason, but you also have to look and say, we'll get into, was it too soon? But they have to look at, is this the person that's going to right the ship? If you only have 5 wins in since July 27th, are you the guy that's going to steer the ship? Are you the person that's going to inspire this roster that has been tooled around you? But at the moment, obviously the results were not coming through, and the Rowdies made a decision to do the most, not desperate thing, but the most actionable thing they can do to make a change. There's definitely a change, and it will be that Robbie Neilson will not get to coach a single game at home in 2024. So I think that's the blueprint of why they did this. Why do they do this? Well, we're not getting points in the table. Just full stop, bang there. I haven't heard no other thing about, oh, he's a bad guy, nobody likes him. Nothing like that. So I want to cull those rumors or thought process at the moment. Also, there's one thing, because this has also been bandied about, is like, why did they fire him 24 hours before a game? Let me put this out there too. They didn't fire him today. They let him go earlier in the week. We did not know about that. We learned about that today. I wish we would have known, but our Tuesday pod would have been a little different. But we didn't hear about the firing until the day, just like everybody else. However, he was let go earlier in the week. The team has been training this week under the interim coach. They're not going to wake up. They didn't wake up learning the news the same way you and I did. So we'll put that to rest, that they didn't just make a rash decision on Friday morning, and someone had their bowl of cereal and said, what I should do today? Fire Robbie Neilson. So that didn't happen, guys.
there's a lot of talk about, like, obviously as these things develop, and as Robbie Neilson came in replacing Neil Collins, the Scottish connection, there's a lot of comparison to Neil Collins and everything, and I bring that up, and Neil Collins will come up later on in the discussion as well. But I bring that up because when Neil Collins took over, it was right after the Open Cup game against Jacksonville that we lost. Mm-hmm. That was quite literally overnight. That was someone eating a bowl of cereal and being like,
we've heard that from 2 different people on the podcast.
That one actually was overnight. So not that it can't happen, but this was not one of those cases. This was it seemed to be a long, drawn out year and 4 games or so of looking at this and seeing what the best path forward is. I mean, the numbers aren't great from that back half or the back third of the season last year. Like you said, this year starting the season with 4 games and 1 win in those games, and that one win being against Miami is unfortunate. I think there was like great bright spots early on in those early draws as well. But I mean, yeah, I mean, like I said, it's impossible and unnecessary and negative to even speculate about like outside things other than the numbers.
Yeah.
So I think I can leave it there, and I think we could just point to the results as being, the reason. Like, what other reason would there be, right? Okay, so that's the why, right? And again, if you're tuning in live right now, this was, again, I'm going to remind everyone of a great time to jump in and give us your thoughts as we kind of move into the was it a good decision part. Was this the right time, right? Could this ship have been righted by Robbie Neilson? Again, if you're listening to live Twitter, YouTube, jump in, give us your thoughts. The Facebook was bumping today, as it always is when there's a big piece of news. Triple digits in the comments, which is always a sign of, I mean, it's not usually a good thing when there's so many comments. Folks seems to be based on that thread, generally in agreement that it was a good decision. Based on what I just quick perusing, it seems like everyone kind of agrees that the results aren't there. I can agree with that as well. I'm not sold on the timing of this. I'm not sold on the idea that he was given enough time. I think I don't want to say unfair is the right word, because obviously like he had a full season as well. But I mean, we've talked about, and then we've had players talk about how tough the transition is to American soccer. From the player perspective, even potentially even more so from the manager's perspective, especially coming over from, Scotland, where things are a bit more traditional, less travel. Like there's a huge learning curve when it comes to American soccer, particularly a league as kind of strange and perplexed as the USL. There's a big learning curve. And to play, and this is kind of where my thoughts are today as of 7:04 p.m. To push, like I've seen a lot about, and you mentioned the back third of the season as well, right? It was like 5 wins in the last 20, 4 wins in the last 20 games of last year. Between the regular season and the playoffs. Obviously a bad stretch, and maybe like a worse stretch than we've had in past seasons, but that's not been uncommon for us either. Like I can't point to a Neil Collins season, and Neil Collins, who we obviously like respect a ton as a coach and did so much for us. I can't point to a Neil Collins season that didn't have a horrendous stretch at some point in the season. Maybe it was the middle of the year, maybe it was back in the, obviously you lose games, but there was points in every season where we were losing games, except maybe that 2020 season, right? When we finished in first place, but it was kind of like that weird COVID situation. Pre the hurricane, and I can't remember which one it was first. Was it Milton or Helene first? I get them confused. I think it was.
Well, they're alphabetical, right?
Is it? Okay. Well, oh geez, I don't want to do the alphabet in my head right now. Whichever one was first. I'm so tired. Whichever one was first, right?
Yeah.
Before that date, the Rowdies had 13 wins, 9 losses, and 7 draws. 13 win and 7.
Yep.
Not bad. I mean, especially if you're looking at a first season situation, those numbers are not bad. And just to keep the Neil Collins comparison going, because I see a lot of folks being like, we need to bring him back, which obviously I would love, but for the record, he's in Sacramento. You know what I mean?
I know, dude.
I wish, but that's where we're at.
Yeah.
For the record, Neil Collins finished his first full season with the Rowdies in 5th place.
Yeah.
Robbie Neilson finished his first full season with the Rowdies.
We got to stop comparing him to Neil Collins, man. He's not Neil Collins, but he had a good roster though. So
I've seen like because it comes up so much in the discourse. So just to use like this comparison back, that I've seen, like if you want to keep this comparison going, which again I agree, Eureka is not like healthy. That's not necessary. Like the numbers were like. Were almost exact, not exactly. The numbers were very comparable for a full season.
First year, right.
And then you add on to the fact that we're talking about a whole hurricane situation for this back end of the season.
Right.
Obviously, you're going to deal. I mean, like I said, that slip started before the hurricane, and the hurricane situation certainly didn't help. Like we were already we were starting to slide. Right. We opened August with 2 draws last year.
Yeah.
We lost at home to Loudoun United in August, which never want to see, obviously. At that time, they were not the Loudoun of this season, so
Right.
caveat that. You lose to Colorado Springs over there, lose away to Birmingham, get a win against Pittsburgh at home, lose to Charleston 3-1, and then the hurricane hits. And then you're in Miami and you're bouncing around. And you have to play that home game in North Carolina, and you're training in Miami, and you're playing at IMG for the last 2 games of the season. But I like those games in October. It like those circumstances. I can't really fault a guy like Robbie for how that went. Sure, like pre that you had a slide start to happen, but again, like that happens in any season we've ever had. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Before that, the numbers were fine and maybe even like pretty good.
Okay.
Not great, but they were good. And we were in, and I wish I had I couldn't figure out a way to bring up like the table from a certain date. You know what I mean? I really wish I could go back, and I've been trying to like put the numbers together, and I just haven't been able to do it this quickly. So if you figure out a way, let me know. But we were probably somewhere around 4th or 5th place, like by the by the time the hurricanes hit us. Slide down to 6th, and that's when we were kind of in discussion about whether we even make the playoffs for a second at the end of the year with all the hurricane stuff. So all that to say, I'm not going to use the word unfair, but I'm close to it. You know what I mean? I'm close to it when we're talking about last season, because that's what we're really analyzing. And then you go, okay, well, he had 4 games this season. I mean, a incredibly strange start to the year when you're playing all your games away. It wasn't inspiring. It was not inspiring. Don't get me wrong. But sacking him before the first home game, before you have the stretch of home games where you have an opportunity to bounce back, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this is the time where you right the ship. And again, I wasn't convinced on Robbie Ball at the beginning of this year, just based on how things have gone. But if there was a time to fix it, would have been this home stretch.
Correct. I agree with that 100%.
All that being said, Steve Coleman, give me your best shot, man. Like whatever. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like I'll go into expectations in a little bit, but
we'll get to Steve here for sure.
Like kind of now it's a little bit up in the air, but that's all to say. I think at best, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, this was, I think, premature.
Okay.
If not unfair, but I think premature because, again, we hadn't played our first home game, an incredibly weird start to the season. The learning curve for the U.S. Soccer scheme is incredibly large, and this is a guy who has a proven track record in a pretty decent league in Scotland. I don't get the talent. The talent he has is there, and you can see that by looking at his history.
Yeah,
it hadn't fully come across into U.S. soccer, but I think you have to give that first season a lot of leeway.
Okay.
Just like ignoring the hurricane stuff, ignoring all the hurricane stuff, just talking about that transition to U.S. soccer, there has to be a certain amount of leeway. James and I talked a lot about that last season.
Right.
And again, just to turn it back to you, conclude by saying, like I said, pre-hurricane numbers, 13 wins, 9 losses, 7 draws.
Yeah.
Fine. It's good. That's not great. We weren't in first place. We were behind Louisville and Charleston. You know what else? One more thing I wanted to say.
Sure.
There's a lot of stuff that I've seen since the offseason about losing Cal Jennings. We lost Cal Jennings.
Yeah.
Robbie lost Cal Jennings. That's not a Robbie thing.
Robbie, yeah.
It's it can never that never made sense to me either. Sure, we lost him and we brought in Woobs and we're still trying to figure that out. Sure.
Yeah.
I still think Woobs has a potential to put up the numbers that Cal did.
We can keep into expectations.
Yeah. You guys already talked about the Charleston game and obviously how Cal kind of ran a bit all over us, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But that was the other thing I wanted to mention because that's the other thing I keep seeing on social media.
Yeah.
We lost Cal.
I'll to piggyback on that. So the facts are, look, he did have one season to get acclimated, but that's only one season. So it's your mileage may vary on, is that enough or did we start this year? And the thing is that it should be noted, Robbie had input on the roster, but this ain't the Neil Collins era anymore. It's not one guy Nico and the front office. They take input,
yeah,
but they built this roster, and they're very confident in this roster. They feel they've built a very good roster that can compete, if not just in the higher level of the playoffs.
Justifiably. Yeah.
Right. And so Robbie ain't the reason that Robbie has input for sure. Every head coach GM relationship should be technical director relationship should be that way. But like, Robbie isn't the guy who was like, I want Cal Jennings out of this locker room. That never happened. Okay. So again, put your blame where you want to do that. But and it was only 5 weeks in the season, 4 games.
Yeah.
So again, your mileage may vary on, was it too soon or was it not? I guess I'll throw my opinion now is that, as much as I agree with this decision, I think that he warranted being on the hot seat. I guess I should say that. I don't want to say he warranted getting fired. That's not what I'm saying. But he should have been on a very hot seat. And I believe he was on a very hot seat to go into week 1.
Sure.
The things that we had were, some information and things that we were able to talk with different sources. This was a make or break beginning to this season. And I don't think he passed that test. Again, though, I think a lot of people out there would agree, though, that because of the like all these circumstances that he had to deal with, 100%, you had to deal with a weird schedule. Okay, then you go into the offseason. The front office believes they put together a really good team. We think we have a really good roster of talented players. I think you and I and James and the fan base believe the hype that we're getting, that this is a good roster. So if you have a hot seat and you have a talented roster and you're not getting results, that's a hot seat situation. My opinion is that like we were saying, I maybe would have liked to see the respect given to give him at least. I mean, you have 4 or 5 home games in a row. Like, can you give him 2, 3, and just to see do these vibes get better now? The timing of it, though, I don't know if it's a better time for him. Like, if they get with Robbie and they're like, hey, things aren't going great. And, the vibe is also like, I don't really like it here either. And then they decide, okay, we're going to we're going to let you go. We're going to get you out of here because it is beneficial for us to have a bigger time frame for the rest of the season. You are bringing in an interim head coach during a homestand, of which if you're going to make a change and you're going to start a guy from scratch, you at least now you've given him the runway. You didn't, I don't want to say waste. That's not the word, but you didn't use a resource on a coach that you thought wasn't going to be here or was on the hot seat. And you gave that opportunity to a coach to begin with. So you're giving a new coach a 5 or 6 or whatever the monstrosities, the schedule that we get where we get all these home games. You're giving that. So is the timing good for the next coach, but not it is unfair to the outgoing coach. So if pressed with that decision, that's a hard decision to make. People lives are affected by that decision, and it isn't as. I mean, it would sound better on paper if Robbie got to have a couple more games for the Robbie Neilson book that you're writing, right? But for the Tampa Bay Rowdies, was it the best time to do this? Fair or unfair to the outgoing coach. But it's not black and white. There's no right. I don't think there's a right. I think there's just everyone's going to have their own opinion, and what I think we all agree with is we want to, if we're going to move forward, we all want to move forward and we all want to support the green and gold. And that starts this Saturday with Steve Coleman as interim head coach. Now, other than the press release that was put out when he was brought onto the club, I don't think Googling will do much more to get you in-depth analysis and insight into the history of Steve Coleman. And again, unless there's other resume, and I'm sure they did all their diligence to hire this guy, but he was brought in, and it seems like his trajectory is he's a rising assistant coach in the world of soccer, who has been an academy director in Australia, has been a assistant coach and analyst for the New Zealand youth national teams, and has been stateside for at least a year with Loudoun United as part of their technical staff, and was there. I believe the designation was he was the first assistant coach for Loudoun United. I believe that was the term that was given when they announced that he was being hired, is that he wasn't just an assistant coach, he was the first assistant coach. So I don't know where the you know how there's like associate head coach in the NFL, like I don't know where the pyramid, the flow chart goes.
He's up there, he's close to the head
but
coach.
I would assume and you start doing breadcrumbs and you notice that Mr. Coleman is Coach Coleman is almost lockstep in a lot. Like there was a photo a couple weeks ago from Miami where all the away fans, like the people who went to the game in Miami, which were probably 90% of the crowd, and the Rowdies took a team photo. They're like I think they're holding Ollie Bassett or Nate. They're holding someone. Yeah, and Robbie Neilson is on one side and Coach Coleman is on the other. Those are the only two coaches in that photo. And in other photos in training, Coleman is prominently featured. Now maybe that photographer just like really likes Steve Coleman and wants to put him in the middle of a lot of shots. But I say that to say, like, he's been around. He hasn't been just sitting drinking water on the sidelines. The players know who he is. His voice has been heard. And although his resume,
we're losing Eureka a little bit. Eureka's.
I'll throw it over to you while my internet gets situated here.
Yeah, you're back now. You're back. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I apologize. But anyway, the resume might not be extensive. However, his time, because when they brought him on, you have to remember it was the exact same press release that said Nicky Law is going to Nicky Law's out, but he didn't get his own press release. It was Steve Coleman is in as an assistant coach, and Nicky Law is pursuing other coaching opportunities. That was the end of the Nicky Law, who was the head coach of this team at one point. So
what a time that was.
Yeah. So they brought him in, and I know there's some, you want to connect breadcrumbs, and you say, did you bring in Coleman knowing full well, like we had heard that it needed to be a good start if Robbie Neilson's like trajectory was going to be just amazing at the Tampa Bay Rowdies, he would have had to start very hot in the beginning of the season, or at least the vibe and the culture just needed to be very positive going into this homestand, of which it is not. It is the opposite of that. So was Coleman brought in knowing that, hey, if we need to pull the ripcord on this, that we have what in their minds a capable person that is an up and coming coach, that we were able to snag away from another USL Championship club. So again, that's speculative and things like that. However, you do want to have the best coaches on your bench. You want future head coaches, even if they're not going to be future head coaches of your club. You want that talent to be cultivated under you, so you can benefit from that. So, so I guess, do you believe in Steve? Is that what we're doing? Believe in Steve? Is that the rallying cry?
Someone put the Minecraft movie came out last week, and someone put something like that in the Rouse Mob Discord, which I enjoyed. It brightened up a little bit of the uncertainty in the Rowdies world a bit right now. And this kind of bleeds into, like the timing of this and was it a good decision or whatever. Like I said, where I am right now at 7:21 p.m. on this Friday night, I'm not sold on whether on this being like the right time or the right decision. But if it was, if I'm in your shoes, Eureka, because you seem to be more on board with it than I am at the moment. I see where we could be coming from with that, right? Okay. I see the vision for, there's still plenty of soccer left right now at this point in the season.
Yeah.
In some sense, the way this read to me this morning when I was really pessimistic was we're throwing in the towel and we're calling it a day already.
Okay.
Like which felt, because I'm thinking back to the Neil Collins transition, right? We had, Nicky Law as interim head coach, and we had Stuart Dobson do the interim stuff for a second. There was someone else in there at some point who did an interim stint for like a game. And we just lost and lost and lost and lost and lost. Like we finished, I don't know where we finished that season off the dome. I can't remember. But we were losing games left and right. And we had the excuse, James and I would hop on here and be like, well, it was an interim head coach. Like, what are you going to do? Like, it's not the long-term solution.
Sure.
I don't know if Steve Coleman is a long-term solution. He's we know that he is the interim head coach right now.
Right.
We don't know if he will stick around and as the head coach for the long-term future, if we're looking around for another head coach right now.
Right. Yeah.
But I think you make a great point about the timing of him coming into the squad. It's not like we're promoting someone from within who's been here for X amount of years, like Stuart Dobson, right? We're promoting the guy who we just brought in this offseason pretty quietly too, by the way.
3 months ago. Yeah.
So again, I see that. I hear what you're saying, and that's like well received. That this was kind of the contingency plan, maybe this offseason already.
Yeah,
maybe, I don't know. This is speculation, right?
Yeah, correct.
I mean, we've kind of been pretty good at identifying up and coming talent as a club.
Yeah.
Maybe that serves true in the coaching world as well. This guy would be kind of the definition of up and coming because there's not really there's no head coach, like professional head coaching, history here. So this will be his first head coaching gig tomorrow,
right?
Against Loudoun. I will say, I rather jokingly, maybe snarkily, commented in our Discord Eureka with the RBLR crew that if nothing else, we have the inside source on Loudoun tomorrow.
Yeah.
Which last year and the year before that, I don't think we would have cared much about, but I mean, this year it's not necessarily a thing to look to, to look over. I mean, Loudoun's looking good, so whatever. Yeah. Maybe that's a helpful bit for tomorrow. I know you and James already previewed this matchup earlier this week, but hey, something to keep in mind for tomorrow. Obviously, the first assistant coach for Loudoun last season, whatever that means. So expectations. I've gone back to my more optimistic self this evening, and I'm not saying we're throwing in the towel anymore by going to an interim situation, but it's hard for me to ignore where we were with the interim situation, losing, and the excuses that James and I had every week because it's just like a coach who's never coached before and we're figuring it out, whatever. So I'm not sure if that'll be the same situation this time around. Because it won't be, because the Neil Collins transition is not the same as the Robbie Neilson transition. So wherever we end up,
they're all different.
Neilson, but it's hard for me to ignore that part of that season and just be like, oh well, it'll probably all go swimmingly. I don't think it will. I don't think it will. I think expectations, temper them. We still have a really great squad, and I think any decent coach, worth his coaching license should be able to get some wins at home in particular.
Right.
So I will say, I temper expectations, but I think we can also expect still to get some results at home in this stretch.
Yeah.
I won't, if Steve Coleman comes out here and wins 4 of these home games, and we're all going crazy, I won't be sold on him yet because we have a great roster and we're playing at home. Robbie Neilson, I'm fully convinced Robbie Neilson would have been able to get most of these wins at home.
Okay.
And we turn things around or whatever. Maybe not go on and win the title or whatever. I don't know what would have happened after this home stretch. But I'm almost certain that we would have gotten results here at home. So I think Steve Coleman can do the same. Like I said, I think any decent coach with this roster at home should be able to do the same. He's had a bit of time now over here, just a few months, not that much time with the Rowdy squad, but he's gotten to know the boys. He knows the tactics. I don't think we'll see a too much, change.
Agreed. I think, yeah.
I don't think we see too much change from what we do, which is good because that's served us well in the last several seasons.
Yeah.
So again, tempered expectations, but not necessarily rock bottom expectations either. I was pretty negative this morning. I wasn't feeling great. I was like, okay, well, the interim situation is going to suck and we're going to lose everything, whatever. But then you calm down and you realize we're at home. We have a great squad, and things should turn around. So if nothing else, I hope this home stretch really, really boosts Steve Coleman's confidence with the squad, the squad's confidence in Steve Coleman, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we kind of just ride this, home, like scrap everything, scrap these first 4 games now. This is basically a new start, right?
100%.
So we're starting at home now.
Yeah.
Let's ride that momentum to a bunch of wins. I could see that happening, truly.
Sure.
But I know nothing about Steve Coleman and his coaching ability.
No.
Like, so I really, really don't know.
Yeah, I think prognosticating what will happen, no one knows. It could be a train wreck, and obviously it could be. Maybe everyone's wrong. Maybe the front office is wrong that these players were good. Maybe our good players are old. Maybe maybe everything's just bad, and that is a darkest timeline. It wouldn't have mattered if Robbie Neilson, Neil Collins, Pep Guardiola was on the sideline. Just it ain't gonna happen. Okay.
Yeah.
However, I'll get out of that. That was that's a joke. But like, again, what changes are going to be made immediately? Nothing. I doubt. Like, personnel is the biggest thing. If people are, because so the injury report came out. I haven't did my quote, but basically, Moon is out for sure. He is out. We don't have a complete medical diagnosis on him, but everyone else is no one else is out. There's a couple people that are questionable, but like if Aaron Guillen can play, maybe that's a change that they make. If Lasso we haven't seen him on the pitch yet. If Lasso is able to play, maybe you see that. The Robbie Neilson has been tinkering with a back 3, back 4. So I really wouldn't expect. I mean, maybe that's a slight change that could be made, but again, that would tie with personnel that's on the field. So there's a lot of those kind of things. But in terms of the any big change in a pattern of play or how they're trying to work the ball into the box, or nothing's worked so far this year. So any change, if there's a change that's able to be there, it's going to come from a player making the biggest change in how they're playing, not in terms of where Steve Coleman put them on the pitch. So I don't think there's going to be much changes of any patterns of play, things like that. Maybe it's a spark. Maybe people, like you said, okay, we can wipe the slate clean. We don't have to worry about the first 5 weeks of the year. It's just, it is what it is. There might, and every coach and every player have different dynamics. I'm dealing with some of my other teams that I follow that have fired their head coach in the last week. And you see some immediate bumps, and maybe some guys are getting a little more opportunity than they were. Like, I mean, we have so much talent on the bench that hasn't been playing that, like, if Nyangabiri got more time, if Lasso is able and fit and he got more time, if Guillen is able, fit, and gets more time, and we're able to maybe put other people in like positions that they're more used to playing, right? Without getting into an hour-long discussion about that. I already talked a lot about that on the other podcast we put out this week with James. You should go back, because a lot of that analysis that was on Robbie Neilson are still questions that we have to have about Steve Coleman. Where are you going to put these players, and where are you going to put them?
Yeah.
Will it be much different? Maybe not, but the attitude, the little bit of that pep and a little bit of sugar in your Gatorade might get you up and at them a little differently now that you understand. And I hope the team understands that. I think they're doing this not to give up on the season. They're doing this to try to invoke a little bit of a spark into this while you have this opportunity at home. But now no one's safe. If you didn't know that already, nobody's safe, including the head coach. And so I think season expectations now, you just have to wait. I don't think you should think we're going to win the title. I don't think you should think we're a lock for the playoffs, but I think you should be open-minded that it's still possible. Yeah. But nothing, if I had to bet on what will happen, it's too unclear. If I shook an 8-ball right now, it would say, unclear, try again, we'll see. So we have to take it week by week. We have to make sure that this club is moving forward in a good direction. Like our friend Kenny Morales, thank you, Kenny, for dropping a thing. You know, he kind of said he's surprised because rarely do you ever see a coach fired this early. Of course, it's a result-driven business. Results haven't been there, right? But this is the comment I want to get to is the Rowdies front office clearly believes this roster isn't the issue from the statement that Brian Auld released. That being said, they seem very high on Coleman, so let's see what happens. Let's see what happens is sort of my mantra right now. I want my green and gold to win every game 10-0. So the only thing we can do as fans is to get to Al Lang and to cheer our boys on and to believe in Steve and to believe on the 11 that's on the pitch, man. And like, and hope that if this was a positive thing, it's good. And if there's more changes that need to be made, I don't think this front office this is a clear directive that if it ain't working, we're going to try to fix it. So we might break a few eggs before that omelet gets on the plate, but they're going to do it. So
again, like I like to kind of put my bow on this. Like I think the timing of it is questionable, but also I see where you're coming from. Like now we have a full season still. We basically have a full season.
Yeah,
we're not like after 4
James
games.
even wrote that in his article that like even with Robbie Neilson as he wrote it, it was like nothing matters. Today is the new day. Today is the real start of the season. We can make up this deficit.
With the home games we have to catch up on now, and 4 games into the season, like a first place finish still isn't like out of reach. Obviously, like
Colorado Springs,
tempered expectations.
Orange County,
exactly. Like it's not. It's so early. Like that. Having time to bounce back is important. So I personally wish it would have been Robbie Neilson still like having been given the chance to bounce back and spark that. I truly am not sure you can go out there and find like a more talented, high-ish profile coach that would have been willing to come to the Rowdies like he did. It's hard. I mean, we got a guy with proven talent, proven track record in Scotland to drop everything and make his way to Tampa Bay. I'm not sure if you'll be able to do that again. So that being said, do what you can now with what you've chosen. It's not worth like reflecting too much on it now that it's happened. Now you're rocking with the young guys, and sometimes that proves fruitful. So I don't know if it will. And like I said, I will still be at every game I can be at, of course.
Yes.
I've already booked my like away game, situation. So I'm whether it's Steve Coleman or Stu Dobson or Rico Wheeler.
I'm available, Ryan. Like I'm here.
I'll be there. I'll be there. Whether it's Kenny Morales who gets hired and taken away.
He's on the bench with me if I get hired. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So that's where we're at. That's where we're at.
Yeah.
I was just saying, I'm the eternal optimist. So like you've heard me say most weeks, like I'll still predict a lot of wins because the roster is so good. Like the roster is good, man. Like any half decent coach is going to get good results at home with this roster. Especially, it's not like we're just bringing in someone new and plopping him in. Like he's been here for a few months now, at least. That's good. Continuity is good. Uncertainty sucks. But there has to be a period of uncertainty to figure out what we want to do. Is Steve Coleman the guy? Do we actually believe in Steve? Is he going to be the head coach long term?
Yeah.
Could be. Still get hyped. Be at the game tomorrow. Believe in Steve. Sure.
Yeah, we got a comment here. Our friend and colleague Liz. They wouldn't have fired him if they didn't have an idea who they wanted already. We did touch on that a little bit about like was the hiring in January a contingency plan for if the start wasn't as hot as they wanted, that they did know who they were going to put in. And that kind of ties into the tactics that were being implemented. They know they're bringing in a guy, I hope, that, he runs a inverted pyramid, we put 5 strikers in the front. Like I think they brought in a guy who knows this is where we're going to set up. And if that ripcord needs to get pulled in, these are the tactics we're implementing. These are the things we're going, and you can't just switch that in 1 week. So,
we run a very simple style to understand, and it should be simple to adopt. And I think that's a good thing, because we have the players that should be like you run the style. The important part is bringing in a squad that can run it correctly.
Yeah.
I honestly don't think the coaching part is going to would influence it that much. We're not going to play with, like, we're going to switch over. All right, now we're doing a 4-3-3 from one day to the next. Like,
right.
This is what we're doing. This is who we are. It's the Rowdies identity for the since Neil Collins, maybe even like the back end of Stu Campbell. Like, we've been doing this for a while, and it's worked generally for us. We have a good squad that can do it. So I don't imagine, like you said, it won't switch up overnight.
What tactics? The problem is you can't fire 11 guys at once, but you can replace a head coach. So we're going to find out if we were saying this earlier. We're going to find out if the players aren't the right players, because we've already pulled one. We pulled one grenade out, and we threw Robbie Neilson out. Does that one change affect 11 guys on the pitch? That seems to be the hope, that we have good players, we have a good game plan, and of course this team does have an identity that the front office is trying to put in. And if I told you that their identity is they want to play entertaining, high scoring soccer, that's not the kind of soccer we've been getting out of the Robbie Neilson era. At least, there were ups and there downs. He was perfectly 500. He was perfect. Carlos, you're muted. He was perfectly 500, buddy.
I will always remember the Charleston game last year as my highlight of the Robbie Neilson era. Yeah. Eureka, we had a quick chat before we started that, like, maybe this is a period we just kind of forget about at some point in the future.
I was going to ask you that.
I'm not sure. Like, I'm not sure that's, like, super fair. Like, it was a crazy time with these hurricanes and everything and whatnot. I will say, maybe we won't get it from the club or many folks based on how the season's gone. I'll say thank you to Robbie Neilson.
Okay.
If no one else will, because I think, if nothing else, we've added a great emphasis on the youth culture here that he's repeatedly put out into the public, and that's like his thing. The youth, the community.
Yep.
And I think that's been reflected in the front office as well.
Okay. You
could say maybe it's the front office that's been putting that out there, and Robbie Neilson's been kind of like the mouthpiece. But I based on the limited conversations with Robbie, personally, you could tell it's important to him.
Yes.
You could see it in the squad based on the folks and the young guys in the squad, the young guys he plays, like the trust he puts in them. That's important. That's a big culture shift from the prior coaching situation we had as well. So that's a big shift. I can appreciate that, if nothing else. I can appreciate the few, really exciting games we did have in the last season. So I'll leave it at that. At the end of the day, Eureka, you and I don't get paid to make the decisions. So there's guys that do get paid to make those decisions, and they have their salaries on the line for it. Yeah. And we just kind of get to talk about it for fun every week. So
I think, to put my final bow on this, it is unfortunate that Robbie Neilson had to be the true successor to Neil Collins. Like, there was Nicky Law and an equipment manager and whatever. I didn't win the drawing to be the head coach during that time, but
I was close.
Yeah. Well, if Amy Beamer might have won it if there was a raffle. So they had to get a joke in there. But the thing about is that, unfortunately, he was the true successor. So he will always be compared. Oh, you weren't Neil Collins. You didn't do it like Neil Collins. You didn't. Well, when Neil Collins was here, we did that. And unfortunately, he wasn't Neil Collins in a lot of ways. His demeanor was not the same as Neil Collins. His coaching style was not the same as Neil Collins. There were some similarities tactic wise, but again, the results just didn't show. A lot of underlying good statistics that just, unfortunately, if you don't get results, no one cares about your underlying statistics. And I say that as a spreadsheet nerd guy. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think it's unfair to so much, but that's his legacy. His legacy in the Rowdies will be, you weren't Neil Collins. You're the guy after Neil Collins. And I think that's a detriment to what he tried to do. I mean, he was always respectful with us. He came on the pod twice before everything, but Yeah, he just he like you said, he was very respectful when it came to talking about and wanting to implement a lot of positive things for this culture and keeping
Yeah,
like I think he understood the assignment he was given, that this isn't just Anytown USA. This is a historical franchise with high expectations, and I think he wanted to live up to those. But at the end of the day, you're getting fired because the results didn't go there. So,
yeah,
and will we remember a lot about the Neil? See, I just did it right here. Will we
yeah,
remember a lot about the Robbie Neilson era? Unfortunately, because the results weren't there. There were no trophies. There were no highlight victories other than in the middle of July against Birmingham, Charleston. There were a couple highlights, but eventually, I think he's going to get lumped in where it's just like, if we have the next guy as the big successor, that we will just kind of jump in between these eras of like, okay, Neil Collins was here till he left for a good opportunity. We struggled a bit to find our ground until we found
yeah.
whoever that next guy is.
Could be Steve
Unfortunately,
Coleman. Could be Steve
it
Coleman.
could be Steve Coleman. Yeah. This could be the beginning of this. If we had a podcast back when Neil was getting hired, I don't know what we would have said. But we'll see if Coleman's going to get some runway, or if he's again another stopgap between our eventual guy. But right now, the sky is the limit, but the floor is right there too. And I think that's where you have to have your expectations. Like,
it's a good way to put it.
Could be a train wreck. It could be the beginning of the greatest era of Tampa Bay Rowdies history. So, because I believe in the front office, I believe they're making decisions that they think are the sound decision. We just have to have them be proven right. So, optimistic, but it is what it is. So we've gone on for an hour now. We thank you for the hundreds of people that are watching this this program right now. If this is your first time ever seeing RBLR Rowdies, we do this every week. Carlos and he's over here. I'm in the background producing most weeks. Carlos and James are the stars of the show. We try to give you the insight, analysis, and opinions that we have. We watch every minute. Yeah, of course. With your FIFA knowledge, buddy, like, it's expert. But if there is something you could do, if this is your first time here, because you're watching this and you're here an hour in, if you're on YouTube, youtube.com/@RBLR Sports, we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of subscribers. Why aren't you one of them? Get in there. True. Also, we are up in the corner at RBLR Rowdies on every social media. I know I update them every day. If you're on Blue Sky, if you're on X, if you're on what else is Threads, we're still there. There's a couple people that still follow our threads, and so if you're the one person that's on Threads that's liking and commenting, I'm going to update it for you. So please, wherever you are, I want to meet you there, and we're probably already there for you. So whatever podcast platform, whatever YouTube or social, we're at RBLR Rowdies. So
yeah, we're everywhere. Everyone, the numbers always look better on Twitter. People love just like hopping in the live on Twitter. Hop over to the YouTube too. Bump us the numbers on YouTube too. YouTube's fun. It's fun to get the comments over there and check out the I think better quality video on YouTube than it comes across on
You're way more handsome on YouTube, I can tell you.
Yeah. Sure. I've been told that I have a face for YouTube, and not for
you have Spaces. A perfect face for YouTube. You're a YouTuber, buddy.
Yeah, I'm not a face for Spaces, what they say. Either way, Steve Coleman era. By the way, here's a note. So many similar sounding coach names: Steve Coleman, Stu Campbell, Robbie Neilson, Neil Collins. What are we doing here? Anyway, let's go get like an Argentinian coach named, like, I don't know. I mean, let's just throw in like a Hispanic coach in there. Why not?
Who's give me an Ecuadorian. Who's an up and coming Ecuador? Who needs to come here? Who's the next coach?
Put Jorge Celico in there. Put Celico in there. He was a great coach. He got third place in the U20, World Cup, I think, or something. Whatever. I don't know. Let's switch. If we're running with Steve Coleman, though, let's run with Steve Coleman. I'm there. I'll be at the game against Louisville next week, and I'll finally be back home. Be at the game tomorrow. Be at all the away games. Look, your Naples away game is so close. Just be there. Be at all the games. Come on, you Rowdies.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.